I had spent 47 years building a monument to my own worth. It was an invisible monument, of course. You could not see it with your eyes, but you could feel it in the way I walked into a room, chin high, handshake firm, laugh just loud enough to let everyone know I was comfortable. I had mastered the art of seeming valuable, a successful career, a beautiful family, a reputation for being the one who held things together. I was the rock, the provider, the fixer. But rocks crack, providers go broke, fixers break down. It happened on a Tuesday, which seemed almost insulting. If you're going to have a life-shattering crisis, it should at least happen on a Friday, so you have the weekend to recover. But no, Tuesday at 2:47 p.m. I was sitting in my office, staring at an email that said the project I had poured 2 years of my life into was cancelled. Not postponed, not restructured, cancelled. The funding had been pulled, the team was being disbanded, and I was being thanked for my service in a paragraph that ended with a cheerful, "Best regards." Best regards. I closed my laptop. I walked to the bathroom. I locked the door, and I looked at myself in the mirror. Who was I without that project? Without the title, the corner office, the admiration of colleagues, the sense that I was someone? The face in the mirror looked back at me with empty eyes, and for the first time in my adult life, I had no answer to the question, "What are you worth?" I had built my entire identity on what I did. I was not a person who had value. I was a person who earned value. Every day, through productivity, through achievement, through the applause of people whose opinions I pretended not to care about. But now the applause had stopped, the stage lights had gone dark, and I was just a middle-aged man in a too-small bathroom, wondering if anyone would notice if I simply disappeared. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed next to my wife, who was already softly snoring, and I felt utterly, terrifyingly alone. Not lonely. There is a difference. Loneliness is the absence of others. Aloneness is the absence of yourself. I had lost myself so completely in performance that I no longer knew who I was beneath the mask. I got up at midnight and walked to the living room. I sat down on the couch, and for reasons I still cannot fully explain, I did not turn on the TV. I did not pick up my phone. I did not pour a drink. I just sat in the silence for 10 minutes. It was the longest 10 minutes of my life. My mind screamed. It listed every failure, every regret, every person I had disappointed. It rehearsed conversations from 10 years ago. It imagined a future of obscurity and irrelevance. It told me I was worthless, useless, a fraud who had finally been exposed. But I didn't move. I just sat. And then, at the edge of the 10th minute, when the noise in my head was so loud I thought I would shatter, something shifted. The noise did not stop, but a space opened up inside it. A small, quiet clearing in the forest of my panic. And into that clearing, someone stepped. I did not see him with my eyes, but I felt him with a certainty that bypassed logic. It was Jesus. He did not speak at first. He simply sat down next to me on the couch. The couch did not sag under his weight. But I felt his presence, like the warmth of a fire you cannot see. Then he spoke, not in an audible voice, in a question that landed directly on my heart. Why are you trying to prove something that is already true? I froze. The question hung in the air between us. Already true? What was already true? That I was worthless? That I had failed? No, that was not what he meant. He meant my worth, my value, my identity. It was already true. I had been spending my whole life trying to make it true. But he was telling me that worth is not something you achieve. It is something you receive. like gravity, like air, like the love of a father who never stops being a father, no matter how many times his child runs away. I opened my mouth to argue, to list my failures, to explain why I did not deserve to be loved. But no words came out, because in his presence, all my arguments felt like a child insisting that the sun is not shining while standing in broad daylight. The 10 minutes of silence had not been empty. They had been an appointment, and I had shown up. The question Jesus asked me that night, "Why are you trying to prove something that is already true?" did not immediately heal me. If anything, it made things worse at first, because I realized I had no idea how to answer it. I had spent 47 years constructing a cathedral of worth out of bricks I had made myself. Achievement was one brick. Approval was another. Money, status, the envy of my peers, all bricks. And now Jesus was standing in the nave of my cathedral, not with a wrecking ball, but with a single gentle finger. He tapped the wall, and the whole thing began to crumble. Not because he was cruel, because it was never meant to stand. I sat on that couch for another hour after the whisper. The 10 minutes of silence had become an open door, and I was not ready to close it. I began to talk to him, not in formal prayer, but in the raw, stumbling words of a man who had run out of lies. I don't know who I am without the applause. I don't know what I'm worth if I'm not producing. I don't know how to just be. And in the silence that followed my confession, I felt a response. Not words this time. An image, a picture painted directly on the inside of my eyelids. I saw a river, wide and deep and slow, and on the banks of the river stood a child, a little boy of maybe 5 years old. He was trying to fill a bucket with water, but the bucket had a hole in the bottom. He would run to the river, scoop up water, and run back to his little garden. But by the time he reached the garden, the bucket was empty. So he ran back to the river, over and over, exhausted, frustrated, weeping. And then I saw a man walking toward the child. The man did not take the bucket. He did not fix the hole. He simply picked up the child and carried him to the garden. And then, this is the part that broke me, the man became the water. He did not pour water into the garden. He lay down in the dry soil and opened his own veins, and living water flowed from him. I knew the man was Jesus. I knew the child was me. And I knew the garden was my life, my desperate attempt to grow something beautiful from my own effort, using a broken bucket I refused to throw away. "You have been trying to water your own soul," he whispered, "but I am the water. Stop carrying, start receiving." I wept on that couch until my eyes were raw, not tears of sorrow, tears of relief. For 47 years, I had been running to the river with my broken bucket, believing that my worth was measured by how much water I could carry. But Jesus was not asking me to carry more. He was asking me to stop carrying at all, to let him be the source, to let my worth be not in what I did for him, but in what he had already done for me. The cathedral of my self-made worth lay in ruins around me, but in the rubble, something new was beginning to grow, something I had never experienced before. Rest. Not the rest of sleep. The rest of a little boy who has finally stopped trying to earn his father's love and simply climbs into his father's lap. "You are my beloved son," I heard, not audibly, but as a fact more real than the couch beneath me. "With you, I am well pleased. Not because of what you have done, because of who you are, and who you are is mine." That was the second 10-minute silence that changed everything, and it was only the beginning. You would think that after a night like that, after a vision of a river and a healing whisper from Jesus himself, you would wake up the next morning as a completely new person, floating on a cloud of unshakable confidence. That is not what happened. I woke up to an alarm clock, a sink full of dishes, and a to-do list that had not magically shortened itself. The sun came up the same way it always had. My wife asked me to take out the trash. My boss sent a passive-aggressive email about a missed deadline. The car needed an oil change. Life, in all its mundane tyranny, had not paused to admire my spiritual breakthrough. And here is where the real test began. Because it is one thing to feel the presence of Jesus at midnight on a couch when the house is quiet and the world is asleep. It is quite another to feel his presence at 8:15 a.m. when you are stuck in traffic and your coffee is cold and you have just remembered you forgot to call your mother back. The old me would have assumed that the midnight encounter was a fluke, an emotional blip, a trick of exhaustion. I would have filed it away under nice experiences and returned to the familiar grind of proving my worth through productivity. But something had shifted in the bedrock of my soul. The question Jesus asked still echoed. Why are you trying to prove something that is already true? I decided to try an experiment. A small, almost silly experiment. Every time I felt the urge to earn worth, to check a box, to impress someone, to compare myself to a colleague, to spiral into self-criticism, I would pause for exactly 5 seconds. Not 10 minutes, just 5 seconds. And in those 5 seconds, I would whisper to myself, already worthy, already loved, already his. The first day, I did it 37 times, 37 pauses, 37 whispers. By the end of the day, I was exhausted. But something strange had happened. The voice in my head, the one that constantly narrated my inadequacy, had gotten quieter. Not silent, but quieter. Like a radio station that was losing signal. The second day, I only needed to whisper 22 times. The third day, 14. By the end of the first week, I noticed that the pauses were becoming automatic. I did not have to force them. My soul was learning a new rhythm, the rhythm of rest. The grocery store epiphany. The real breakthrough came on a Saturday of all days. I was at the grocery store, pushing a cart with a wobbly wheel, trying to remember if we needed milk. I was nobody in that store. Just another tired, middle-aged man in running shoes that had seen better days. No one was looking at me. No one was applauding. I was invisible. And for the first time in my life, I felt safe in my invisibility. Because if no one was watching, then no one was evaluating. If no one was evaluating, then my worth was not on the line. And if my worth was not on the line, then I could just be. I could be the man who forgot the milk and had to go back. I could be the man whose cart squeaked. I could be the man who stood in the frozen foods aisle for 30 seconds, staring blankly at the ice cream because he was tired and human, and that was allowed. I leaned on the cart handle and whispered to Jesus, I think I'm starting to get it. And I felt a smile, not a voice, not a vision, just a warmth in my chest, like a father nodding at a child who is finally learning to ride a bike without training wheels. You are not what you do, he seemed to say. You are not what others think of you. You are not your failures or your successes. You are my son. That is the only label you need. I bought the milk. I went home. I kissed my wife. I played catch with my son. And I did nothing extraordinary. But everything felt different. Because I was no longer performing for an audience of ghosts. I was living for an audience of one. And that one had already given me a standing ovation before I ever stepped onto the stage. That is what 10 minutes of stillness can do. Not fix you, not perfect you, but show you that you were never broken in the way you thought you were. You were just looking in the wrong mirror. By the end of the second week, I had become a professional whisperer of the truth. Already worthy, already loved, already his. The words had become a reflex, as automatic as breathing. But somewhere underneath the repetition, a more dangerous question was forming. A question I had been avoiding for decades. If my worth is not based on what I do, then what am I supposed to do with all my shame? Shame is different from guilt. Guilt says, you did something bad. Shame says, you are bad. Guilt lives in the actions. Shame lives in the identity. And I had been carrying a cargo hold of shame for so long that I had forgotten it was even there. It was just part of the furniture of my soul. The shame came from 1,000 small wounds, a father who was never pleased, a teacher who mocked me in front of the class, a friend who betrayed my trust, a marriage early on that I had nearly destroyed through my own selfishness. Decades of moments where I had been told, directly or indirectly, that I was not enough, not worthy, not lovable. I had spent my whole life trying to outrun that shame by achieving. If I could just be impressive enough, successful enough, generous enough, then surely the shame would finally let go. But it never did. It just moved into the background, like a mold that grows in the dark corners of a house. Now, with my worth securely anchored in Jesus, the shame had nowhere to hide, and it was furious. The third week collapse. It happened on a Wednesday night. I was alone in the house. My wife had taken the kids to her mother's for dinner. I had stayed behind under the guise of work, but really I just needed air. I sat down on the same couch where Jesus had first met me, and I waited for the peace to come. It didn't come. Instead, the shame rose up like a flood. Every failure I had ever committed paraded before my eyes in high definition. The time I had lied to cover my tracks, the time I had ignored a friend in need because I was too busy, the cruel words I had spoken to my wife during a fight, the ways I had used people for my own advancement, the selfishness, the cowardice, the pride. I gasped for breath. The shame was not just in my mind, it was in my body, a heavy, suffocating weight on my chest. I wanted to run. I wanted to numb. I wanted to pick up my phone and scroll until the feelings went away. But I had made a promise to myself. 10 minutes of stillness, every day, no matter what. I set a timer on my phone. 10 minutes, and I sat. The first 3 minutes were agony. The shame screamed at me. You are a fraud. You are a hypocrite. If people knew the real you, they would run. You don't deserve to be loved. You don't even deserve to sit on this couch. I did not argue. I just sat. At minute 4, the screaming turned into weeping. Hot tears rolled down my cheeks. I did not wipe them away. I let them fall. At minute 6, something shifted. The shame was still there, but it was no longer attacking me. It was simply present, like a storm that had exhausted its fury and was now just rain. At minute 8, I heard a whisper. Not from outside, from within. Give it to me. I did not understand. Give what? The shame. All of it. You have been carrying it alone. That was never the plan. I carried it already. Give it to me. I opened my mouth, and for the first time in my life, I spoke my shame aloud. Not to a therapist, though that would come later. Not to a friend. To Jesus. I named the failures. I confessed the secrets. I spoke the words I had never spoken to anyone. I was afraid. I was selfish. I hurt people. I pretended to be someone I was not. and as each word left my mouth, something miraculous happened. The shame did not disappear, but it detached. It was like watching a heavy coat fall from my shoulders to the floor. The shame was still there. It was real. It had happened, but it was no longer on me. It was at my feet, and Jesus was looking at it, not with disgust, but with the calm authority of someone who had already paid the price. The timer went off. 10 minutes had passed, but I did not move. I sat in the silence for another 20 minutes, just breathing, just being, just letting the truth sink in. The truth was this: my worth had never been the problem. My worth was infinite and unchangeable because it came from God. The problem was my belief that my worth could be lost, stained, or diminished by my failures. But failures do not change your worth any more than a dirty shirt changes your identity. You take off the shirt, you wash it, you put it back on. You are still you. Jesus had shown me my worth in the first 10 minutes. Now, in the second 10 minutes, he showed me that my worth was stronger than my worst sin. I stood up from the couch. My legs were shaky. My face was wet. But my heart was light. The shame was still on the floor. I left it there. It was not mine to carry anymore. The morning after the shame broke, I did something I had never done before. I went for a walk without a destination. No headphones, no podcast, no agenda to get my steps in, or burn calories, or accomplish anything measurable. I simply put on my shoes, opened the front door, and started walking. The neighborhood was quiet. A few cars passed. A dog barked from behind a fence. The sun was still low, painting everything in shades of gold and pink. And I felt nothing. No euphoria, no deep peace. Just ordinary. Which, I was beginning to learn, was the truest sign of healing. The addict who needs a constant high is still enslaved. The free man does not need a constant rush of joy. He simply lives. I walked for about 20 minutes until I reached a small park I had driven past 1,000 times but never entered. There was a wooden bench under an oak tree. I sat down. No timer this time, no agenda. Just me and the morning and the God who had been showing me my worth, one 10-minute stillness at a time. That is when the stranger appeared. He was an older man, maybe 70, with a weathered face and clothes that had seen better days. He was carrying a plastic bag full of aluminum cans, a homeless man, clearly. He walked slowly, scanning the ground for recyclables. When he saw me sitting on the bench, he paused. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. His voice was gravelly, worn. "Please," I said, scooting over. He sat down heavily, letting out a long sigh. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. The silence was not awkward. It was the comfortable silence of two people who had no need to impress each other. Then he said, without looking at me, "You look like a man who just figured something out." I laughed softly. "Is it that obvious?" "Nah," he said. "I just know the look. You've been carrying something heavy for a long time, and you finally put it down. Your shoulders are different." I turned to look at him, really look at him. His eyes were clear and kind, with a depth that suggested he had seen things, hard things, beautiful things, and had made peace with them. "Something like that," I said. He nodded. Then he reached into his bag, pulled out a slightly bruised apple, and offered it to me. "Breakfast," he said. I took the apple. I wasn't hungry, but I took it anyway. It felt like a sacrament. "I used to be a pastor," he said, as if reading my mind. 40 years, big church, big reputation. Then my wife got sick. I left the ministry to care for her. After she passed, I didn't have anything left. No church, no family, no money, just a lot of memories. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. I spent 2 years hating God, he continued. Thought he owed me. Thought my years of service should have bought me a better ending. But then one night, I was sleeping under a bridge, and I heard something. Not a voice, a whisper. 4 words. My heart skipped. What 4 words? He turned to me and smiled. A real smile, warm and cracked like old leather. I am right here. I almost dropped the apple. Those were the same words Jesus had whispered to me months ago in a different series of stillness. But I had never told this man. He couldn't have known. Those words saved my life, he said. Not because they changed my circumstances. I'm still homeless, still poor, still alone in the world's eyes. But I'm not alone. He's right here. And if he's right here, then I'm richer than anyone who has a house. We sat in silence for another long moment. A bird landed on the grass in front of us, pecked at something, and flew away. Can I tell you something? He said. Please. My worth, he said slowly, used to be in my title. Pastor, leader, preacher. When that got taken away, I thought I was worthless. But Jesus showed me, not in a church service, but under that bridge, that my worth was never in what I did. It was in who I am to him. I'm his son. That's it. That's everything. Tears filled my eyes. This stranger, this homeless, can-collecting, bruised apple-offering stranger, had just preached the gospel to me more powerfully than any sermon I had ever heard. Can I hug you? I asked. He opened his arms. We embraced. He smelled like earth and morning air. It was the holiest moment of my life. When we pulled apart, he stood up, adjusted his bag, and looked down at me. You're going to be okay, he said. Not because life will get easier, because you know who you are now. Don't forget it. He walked away, disappearing around a bend in the path. I sat on that bench for another hour, eating the bruised apple, feeling the sun rise higher, and thanking Jesus for the strange, beautiful way he showed me my worth. Not through a vision, not through a whisper in the night, through a stranger who had nothing and therefore had everything to give. The stranger disappeared around the bend, and I sat on that park bench until the sun was fully up and the morning chill had burned away. I had come looking for nothing and found everything. A bruised apple, a holy hug, a reminder that worth is not measured in bank accounts or titles, but in the quiet, unshakable fact that we belong to God. I walked home slowly, turning over the encounter in my mind. The man had been a pastor. He had lost everything, and yet he radiated a peace that I, with my comfortable house and full refrigerator, had rarely known. How was that possible? The answer, I realized, was simple. He had stopped asking God to change his circumstances and had started letting his circumstances change him. That is the long obedience, the daily, unglamorous work of returning to the truth when the truth feels like a lie. The 6-week experiment. When I got home, I made a decision. I would continue the 10 minutes of stillness every day, but I would add something new. Every morning, before I checked my phone or made coffee or did anything else, I would look in the mirror and say 3 sentences out loud. I am not what I do. I am not what others think of me. I am a beloved child of God, and that is enough. The first time I did it, I felt foolish. The words stuck in my throat. My reflection looked skeptical, but I said them anyway. The second day was easier. By the end of the first week, I no longer felt ridiculous. By the end of the second week, I started to believe it. The brain is a strange organ. It believes what it hears most often. For 47 years, I had been telling myself a different story. A story of inadequacy, of performance, of worth that had to be earned. Now I was overwriting that story with a new one, not by ignoring my failures, but by placing them in a larger context. Failures are real, but they are not the final truth about me. The final truth is that I am held by a love that never lets go. The Sunday morning test, 6 weeks into the experiment, a Sunday morning arrived that I will never forget. I was supposed to lead a meeting at church, a small group of men who looked to me for guidance. But that morning, I woke up with a heavy fog of doubt. The old voices returned. "Who do you think you are? You're a fraud. These men have real problems. You have nothing to offer them." I almost cancelled. My thumb hovered over the send button on a text message that would have read, "Not feeling well. Can't make it today." But then I remembered the stranger. I remembered his cracked smile, his clear eyes, his 4 words, "I am right here." And I remembered my own morning mirror declaration. I am not what I do. I am not what others think of me. I put down my phone. I went to the meeting. And something extraordinary happened. I did not lead with expertise or charisma. I did not pretend to have all the answers. Instead, I sat down with those 6 men and said, "I don't have a lesson plan today, but I want to tell you about a homeless man who taught me what worth really means." I told them the story, the park bench, the bruised apple, the hug. When I finished, the room was silent. Then one of the men, a retired construction worker named Frank, who rarely spoke, started to cry. "I've been a deacon for 30 years, he said, "and I don't think I've ever really believed that God loves me. Not the real me, just the church me." We ended up staying for 2 hours. No agenda, no curriculum, just men being real with each other and with God. When we finally prayed together, I felt something I had never felt in a church setting before. Freedom. Not the freedom to be perfect, but the freedom to be honest. On my way out, Frank grabbed my arm. "That stillness thing you've been doing," he said. "It's working, don't stop." I haven't stopped. That was 8 months ago. I still sit for 10 minutes every day. Some days the silence is golden. Some days it is a battle. But every day I show up. Because I have learned that worth is not discovered in a single moment of revelation. It is uncovered, layer by layer, in the long obedience of the same direction. The 10 minutes of stillness did not fix me. They introduced me to the one who is fixing me, slowly, gently, one day at a time. And that is better than any quick fix could ever be. It happened on a Thursday. No warning. No dramatic build-up. I simply forgot. I woke up late, scrambled to get the kids to school, raced to a meeting I was already 10 minutes late for, and then spent the rest of the day putting out fires. Emails, phone calls, a crisis with a client, a disagreement with my wife over dinner plans. By the time I collapsed onto the couch at 10:30 p.m., I had not sat in stillness for even 1 minute. Not 10 minutes. Not 5. Not even 1. And I didn't even notice. That was the frightening part. I had gone an entire day without once whispering, "Already worthy, already loved, already his." I had not looked in the mirror and spoken the truth. I had not remembered the stranger, or the park bench, or the bruised apple. I had simply lived the old way, the frantic way, the way of performance and panic and proving. I lay on the couch, exhausted, and felt the familiar weight return to my chest. Not shame this time, just a dull, heavy emptiness. The kind you feel when you have been running on empty for hours and only now realize you forgot to fill the tank. "Where did you go?" I whispered into the dark. The answer came immediately. Not as a voice, but as a gentle correction in my spirit. I didn't go anywhere. You stopped looking. He was right. I had not abandoned my practice of stillness. I had simply neglected it. And neglect is a slow poison. It does not kill you all at once. It just makes you forget that you were ever alive. The cost of forgetting. I woke up the next morning with a decision to make. I could beat myself up for missing a day. I could spiral into self-condemnation. See? You can't even stick with this for 6 months. You're a failure. The whole thing was fake. Or I could simply start again. The old me would have chosen the spiral. The old me loved shame. Shame was familiar. Shame was a reason to give up. But the new me, the one who had sat in stillness for 10 minutes a day for nearly 8 months, had learned something crucial. Falling is not failure. Staying down is failure. I got out of bed. I walked to the bathroom. I looked in the mirror. And I said the 3 sentences, even though my voice cracked and my eyes were puffy and I felt like a hypocrite. I am not what I do. I am not what others think of me. I am a beloved child of God, and that is enough. Then I set a timer for 10 minutes. I sat on the couch, I closed my eyes, and I waited. The first 5 minutes were chaos. My mind was a swarm of bees. Yesterday's failures, today's tasks, tomorrow's worries. But I didn't chase the thoughts away. I just watched them, like clouds passing across a sky. And slowly, the sky appeared beneath the clouds. At minute 7, I felt a warmth in my chest. Not euphoria, just a quiet sense of being held. At minute 9, I heard, not audibly, but as a certainty, these words: "You didn't lose anything yesterday. You just forgot. And forgetting is not the same as losing. I never forgot you." The timer went off. I opened my eyes. The room looked the same. But I was different. Because I had been reminded that my worth does not depend on my consistency. It depends on His faithfulness. And His faithfulness is not a fair-weather friend. It is the ground beneath my feet, even when I am not paying attention. The grace of starting over. That day, I learned one of the most important lessons of my life. Spiritual growth is not about never missing a day. It is about coming back, over and over and over again, like a GPS that recalculates every time you take a wrong turn. The GPS does not shame you. It does not call you a failure. It simply says, rerouting. Jesus is the ultimate rerouter. I have missed many days since that Thursday. Life happens. Sickness happens. Exhaustion happens. But I no longer let a missed day become a missed week. I have learned to come back quickly, to extend to myself the same grace that Jesus extends to me. Because if the Creator of the universe does not hold my failures against me, who am I to hold them against myself? The 10 minutes of stillness have become less about achieving a perfect record and more about maintaining a relationship. You do not call your best friend every single day without fail, but you do not stop being best friends just because you missed a phone call. The relationship is bigger than the routine. And the relationship, my relationship with the one who showed me my worth on that couch, in that park, through that stranger, is the whole point. The stillness is just the door. He is the room. So if you have been trying to sit in stillness and you keep failing, keep forgetting, keep getting distracted, good. You are human. That is not a problem to be solved. That is a condition to be accepted. And into that condition, Jesus whispers the same words He has been whispering all along. I am right here, and I am not going anywhere. Now close your eyes, take a breath, and start again. 6 months after the stranger's hug, something unexpected happened. I stopped needing the 10 minutes. Not in the way you might think, not out of laziness or forgetfulness. I stopped needing the 10 minutes as a task, a discipline, a box to check. The stillness had become so woven into the fabric of my days that I no longer had to schedule it. It simply was. I would find myself sitting quietly while the coffee brewed, not scrolling, just breathing. I would turn off the radio during my commute and let the silence hold me. I would lie in bed for a few extra minutes before sleep, not planning tomorrow, just resting in the presence of the one who had shown me my worth. The practice had become a posture, and the posture had become permanent. The unexpected test. That is when the real test came, the one I had not anticipated. It came in the form of success. A new opportunity landed in my lap, a project that used my gifts, paid well, and brought me back into the spotlight. People started praising me again. My name appeared in places I hadn't seen it in years. The old drug, approval, was back on the table, and it was just as tempting as ever. I remember standing in a conference room after a presentation, surrounded by colleagues who were nodding and smiling and telling me how brilliant I was. And somewhere inside me, a small, hungry voice whispered, "See, you are worthy. Look what you did. Look how they see you now." For a moment, just a moment, I believed it. I let the applause define me. I stood a little taller, smiled a little wider, and drank in the validation like water in a desert. Then, on the drive home, the silence returned. Not the uncomfortable silence of absence, but the holy silence of presence. And in that silence, Jesus asked me a gentle question. Are you going to let them tell you who you are? I pulled over to the side of the road. My hands were trembling. You know who you are, he continued. I told you, on the couch, in the park, through the stranger. You are my beloved son. That was true when you had nothing. It is true now that you have something. Do not trade the truth for a lie, no matter how flattering the lie sounds. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, no timer needed, and let the truth wash over me. The applause was nice, the success was sweet, but it was not my identity. It was just a season, and seasons change. But the love of God, that does not change. Ever. The freedom of a fixed worth. That night, I called my wife into the living room. I took her hands and looked her in the eyes. I need you to know something, I said. I love you, but I don't need you to make me feel worthy anymore. That's not your job. It was never supposed to be. She looked at me, confused. What do you mean? I mean, I said, that for 23 years I have been leaning on you to prop up my sense of self-worth. Every time you were proud of me, I felt valuable. Every time you were disappointed, I crumbled. That wasn't love. That was using you as a mirror. And it wasn't fair to you. Tears formed in her eyes. I never knew how to say that, she whispered. But yes, that's exactly what it felt like. Like I was responsible for keeping you together. I'm sorry, I said. I'm not asking you to stop being proud of me or disappointed in me. Feel whatever you feel. But my worth is not in your hands anymore. It's in his. And he has never dropped it. We held each other for a long time. That moment healed something between us that had been wounded for decades. Because when you stop needing someone to give you worth, you are finally free to love them, not as a rescuer, but as a fellow traveler. The 10 minutes that last forever. I still sit in stillness. Not every day, but most days. Not because I have to, but because I want to. The 10 minutes have become my favorite part of the day. The part where I stop pretending, stop performing, stop achieving, and just be with the one who already knows everything about me and loves me anyway. Sometimes I talk, sometimes I listen, sometimes I just sit in the silence, feeling his presence like sunlight on my face. And sometimes, when I am quiet enough, I still hear the whisper. Not new words, the same words, the only words I really need. You are my beloved son. With you, I am well pleased. Not because of what I do, because of who I am. And who I am is his. That is the worth Jesus showed me. Not a worth that rises and falls with my performance. Not a worth that needs to be protected or proved. A worth that simply is. As fixed as the stars. As unchanging as the love that spoke them into being. The 10 minutes of stillness didn't give me that worth. They just helped me stop running long enough to receive it. And receiving it, that is the whole of the Christian life. A year has passed since that first 10-minute stillness on the couch. I am sitting in a different place now. A small wooden chair in my backyard, under the same oak tree where the kids used to hang a swing. The swing is gone. The tree remains. So does the stillness. I have learned that stillness is not a technique. It is a territory. And once you claim that territory, once you sit in it long enough to realize that you are not alone, that you never were alone, that the one who made you is right there with you, the territory begins to expand. It spills over into the rest of your life. The borders dissolve, and eventually you stop thinking of stillness as something you do and start recognizing it as something you inhabit. The inheritance I didn't know I had. A few weeks ago, my father passed away. He was 82, a good man in many ways, but a hard man in others. He was the source of much of my striving. The voice in my head that said, "Not good enough," had his cadence, his tone, his disappointed sigh. I loved him, but I had spent my whole life trying to earn his approval, and I had died 1,000 small deaths, never quite receiving it. When the call came that he was gone, I expected the old shame to return. I expected to hear his voice one last time, whispering all the ways I had fallen short. But something strange happened instead. I sat down on my living room couch, the same couch where Jesus had first met me, and I set a timer for 10 minutes. Not because I had to, because I needed to remember. And in that stillness, I felt my earthly father's presence, not as a judge, but as a fellow traveler. He was not whispering disappointment anymore. He was quiet. And in his quiet, I heard another voice, the voice that had been speaking to me for over a year now. You are not your father's son. Not primarily. You are my son. And I am not disappointed in you. I never was. I wept, not the weeping of grief, though grief was there, the weeping of release, the final, merciful release from a chain I had been dragging since childhood. The chain of earning, the chain of performing, the chain of trying to win a love that should have been given freely. What I left at the grave. At my father's funeral, I stood before a crowd of family and friends and said something I had never said aloud before. I said, my father taught me many things. He taught me to work hard, to keep my word, to provide for my family. But he never taught me that I was enough. And I don't blame him for that. You cannot give what you do not have. But I want you all to know I have learned it now, from a different father. And I am enough, not because of what I have done, because of what he has done. There was a long silence. Then my mother, my stoic, reserved mother, stood up and walked to the front. She took my hand and said, "Your father loved you. He just didn't know how to show it. I'm sorry." I hugged her, and for the first time in my life, I did not need her apology to feel whole. I already was whole. The wholeness had been given to me in 10-minute increments, on a couch, in a park, through a stranger, in the ordinary moments of an ordinary life. The ripple continues. Yesterday, my teenage son came to me. He is 15, tall and awkward, with the same anxious eyes I used to see in the mirror. He sat down next to me on the couch and said, "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "How do you know if you're worth anything?" I took a breath. I wanted to give him a lecture, a list of reasons, a theological treatise, but instead I just put my arm around him and said, "Let's sit here for 10 minutes. No talking. Just sitting, and I'll show you." We sat, in silence, for 10 minutes. At first he fidgeted. He checked his phone twice, but around minute 6 something softened in his shoulders. He put the phone down. He leaned his head against my arm, and when the 10 minutes were up, he looked at me with wet eyes and said, "I think I felt something." "What did you feel?" I asked. "I don't know, like I wasn't alone." I kissed the top of his head. "That's him, son. That's Jesus. And he says you are worth everything, so much that he died for you. You don't have to earn it. You just have to receive it." He nodded slowly. Then he got up, hugged me hard, and walked out of the room. He didn't say another word. He didn't have to. The stillness is still working. It is working in me, through me, and now, God willing, in my son. The 10 minutes that changed everything have become an inheritance, not of money or property, but of presence. The presence of the one who showed me my worth, and I am passing it on. I am writing these words on the first anniversary of the night I sat still for 10 minutes and met Jesus. The couch is the same, the room is the same, but I am not the same. I will never be the same. A year ago, I was a man drowning in the desperate need to prove his worth. Today, I am a man who has finally stopped thrashing and learned to float. The water is still deep, the storms still come. But I have discovered that the same water that once threatened to drown me now holds me up, because the one who walks on waves has taught me that I am not meant to walk on them myself. I am meant to walk with him. The last 10 minutes. This morning, I set a timer for 10 minutes one last time, not because I will never do it again, but because I wanted to mark the anniversary with intentionality. I sat on the couch, I closed my eyes, and I did nothing. No agenda, no expectations, no desperate grasping for a vision or a voice or a feeling. I simply sat. And here is what I discovered. The stillness is no longer something I enter. It is something I carry. The 10 minutes were just the doorway. But the room of peace, of worth, of unshakable identity, that room has no exit. I have been living in it for a year without even realizing it. The timer went off. I did not move. I sat for another 20 minutes, just breathing, just being, just thanking the one who had shown me that my worth was never lost, only forgotten. The 4 things I learned. As I sat there, the past year condensed into 4 lessons. I write them here for you, whoever you are, reading these words in whatever silence or chaos you find yourself. First, your worth is not a feeling, it is a fact. Feelings change like weather. Facts are like bedrock. You may feel worthless today. That feeling is real, but it is not true. The truth is that you were made in the image of God, and that image cannot be erased by failure, shame, or the opinions of others. Second, stillness is not emptiness. It is fullness waiting to be noticed. For years I feared silence because I thought I would find nothing there. Instead, I found everything. I found the one who has been there all along, waiting for me to stop running long enough to feel his embrace. Third, you will forget. And that is okay. Forgetting is not failure. It is the human condition. The question is not whether you will forget, but whether you will come back. Come back quickly. Come back often. Come back with empty hands and a tired heart. He is always there. Fourth, your worth is not for you alone. The moment you truly believe you are beloved, you will start seeing the same belovedness in others. The homeless stranger, the anxious teenager, the exhausted spouse, the enemy who hurt you. They are all carrying the same buried treasure. Help them dig it up. The invitation, I do not know what brought you to this series. Perhaps you are where I was, exhausted from performing, terrified of being found out, secretly convinced that you are not enough. Perhaps you have tried every strategy, every self-help book, every productivity hack, and nothing has filled the hole. I have good news. The hole is not a problem to be fixed. It is a space to be filled. And the only thing that fits is the love of the one who made you. You do not need a dramatic vision. You do not need to feel a sudden rush of emotion. You simply need to sit still for 10 minutes. Not 10 minutes of frantic prayer. Not 10 minutes of trying to believe hard enough. Just 10 minutes of sitting in the presence of Jesus with no agenda except to be with him. Turn off your phone. Sit down. Set a timer. Close your eyes and wait. He will come. Not because you are worthy, because he is faithful. And when he comes, he will not shame you. He will not lecture you. He will not hand you a to-do list. He will simply sit next to you, on your couch, in your car, in your hospital room, in your empty apartment, and he will whisper the only words you have ever needed to hear. You are my beloved child. With you, I am well pleased. That is your worth. It always has been. It always will be. Now go. Sit still and let him show you. 6 months after I wrote The End, I almost threw everything away. Not the stillness practice, not the truth about my worth. Those had become bones deep. But everything else, my marriage, my sanity, my faith in the goodness of God. It happened so fast, like a car sliding on the black ice. One moment I was fine, the next I was spinning. It started with a phone call from my mother. My father had been gone for over a year, and she had been doing reasonably well. Grief, but not despair. But that morning, her voice was different, thin, frightened. The doctors found something, she said. A mass on my pancreas. The words hung in the air like smoke. Pancreatic cancer. I didn't need a medical degree to know what that meant. My mother, the same woman who had stood up at my father's funeral and held my hand, might have only months left. I hung up the phone and immediately felt the old machinery roar to life. The need to control, the need to fix, the need to do something so I wouldn't have to feel something. I started researching treatments. I called hospitals. I made spreadsheets. I built a plan. And somewhere in the middle of the plan, I forgot to sit still. The spiral 3 days went by without a single 10-minute stillness. I told myself I was too busy saving my mother's life. I told myself God would understand. I told myself I would get back to it when the crisis passed. But the crisis didn't pass, and neither did I. By day 4, the old, familiar weight had returned to my chest. The voice of worthlessness was back, louder than ever. You can't save her. You couldn't save your father's approval. You can't save anyone. You are powerless. You are nothing. I believed it. By day 5, I was snapping at my wife. By day 6, I was lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering if God even existed. If he did, why would he let this happen? After everything I had learned, after the couch, the park, the stranger, the whisper, why would he let the fear come back? I was angry, and my anger scared me more than the cancer did. The 10 minutes that saved me. On the 7th day, I hit a wall. Not a metaphorical wall. A real one. The wall of my own bathroom. I had gone in there to hide from my family, to cry when no one could see. I slid down to the floor, sat with my back against the tub, and buried my face in my hands. I had nothing left. No plans, no spreadsheets, no illusions of control. Just a broken man on a cold tile floor. And then, in the wreckage, I remembered. Not the words, not the theology. I remembered the feeling of sitting still, the way the silence had once felt like a warm blanket, the way Jesus had seemed to sit right next to me, close enough to touch. I did not set a timer. I just sat on the bathroom floor for maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10. I stopped trying to save my mother. I stopped trying to fix my anger. I stopped trying to be anything other than what I was. A terrified son who loved his mum and did not know how to let her go. And then, from somewhere deeper than my despair, a whisper rose up. Not a new whisper. The same whisper. The same 4 words that had started everything. I am right here. Not, I will heal your mother. Not, I will explain why this is happening. Just, I am right here, with you, on this bathroom floor, in this mess. I have not left. I wept. Not the hot, frantic tears of panic, the slow, releasing tears of a man who had been holding his breath for a week and finally exhaled. The unexpected gift my mother lived. The mass was benign. The doctors were wrong. I thanked God, hugged her, and cried again. But something had changed inside me. The crisis had not broken me. It had reminded me that the stillness is not a luxury for calm seasons. It is a necessity for the storm. And here is the unexpected gift. During those 7 days of forgetting, I had learned something I could not have learned any other way. I learned that my worth does not depend on my ability to stay calm. It does not depend on my ability to hold it together. It does not even depend on my ability to remember the stillness. My worth depends on the one who never forgets me, even when I forget him. The bathroom floor became a holy place, not because of what I did there, but because of who met me there. Jesus did not say, "You should have sat still sooner." He did not say, "I told you so." He simply said, "I am still here. I never left. You just stopped looking. I still sit still, almost every day. But now I know that the days I miss are not failures. They are just invitations to come back. And coming back, that is the whole of the spiritual life. If you are reading this in your own bathroom, on your own floor, in your own crisis, know this. He is right here. Even if you forgot, even if you are angry, even if you don't feel him, he is right here, and he is not going anywhere. People often ask me, does it ever get easy? They want to know if the stillness becomes effortless after a while, if the 10 minutes stop being a battle and start being a vacation, if the voice of worthlessness eventually shuts up for good. I wish I could say yes, but I have promised to tell the truth. The stillness does not get easier. It gets deeper. There is a difference. Easy means no resistance. Deep means the resistance is worth it. Like climbing a mountain, your legs still burn, your lungs still ache, but the view from the top makes you glad you climbed. I am still climbing, every day. Some days I make it to the summit. Some days I slip on loose gravel and slide back down. But I no longer confuse the slipping with failure. Slipping is just part of the climb. The return of the old voice. Last week, the old voice returned with a vengeance, not the shame voice, that one has grown quieter, though not silent. This was a different voice, a more insidious one, the voice of comparison. I was at a dinner party with friends from college, successful people, people with bigger houses, fancier titles, more impressive vacations. As the evening wore on, I found myself doing the math, not on paper, but in my soul. He makes more than me. She published another book. They just bought a second home. By the time we got to dessert, I had constructed an entire case against myself. I was falling behind. I was not enough. The 10 minutes of stillness had made me soft, complacent, content with mediocrity. I excused myself and went to the bathroom. I looked in the mirror. For a moment, I saw the old man, the performer, the striver, the one who needed to win. But then I remembered. I closed my eyes. I took 3 deep breaths, and I whispered the 3 sentences. I am not what I do. I am not what others think of me. I am a beloved child of God, and that is enough. The voice of comparison did not disappear, but it lost its teeth. It could still bark, but it could not bite, because I had a deeper truth to hold on to, the truth that no amount of success or failure can add to or subtract from my worth. The dinner party test. I went back to the table. My friend Mark was talking about his recent promotion. In the past, I would have smiled through gritted teeth and then spent the next week secretly resenting him. But this time, something different happened. I felt genuine joy for him, not the forced, performative joy of someone pretending not to be jealous. Real joy. Because his success did not threaten my worth. My worth was not in the same category. His house, his title, his bank account, these were measurements of things that did not matter in eternity. His soul? That mattered. And his soul was just as beloved as mine. Mark, that's amazing, I said. I'm really happy for you. He looked surprised. Maybe he had expected envy. Maybe he had been bracing for the subtle competitiveness that had always marked our friendship. But when he saw that I meant it, his whole face softened. Thanks, man, he said. That means a lot. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, my wife turned to me in the car and said, "You were different tonight." Different how? Kind, not trying to prove anything, just present. I reached over and took her hand. That's the stillness, I said. It's not making me perfect. It's just making me free. The roar beneath the quiet. People think stillness is weak. They think silence is passive. They have it backwards. Stillness is the most aggressive thing you can do in a world that never stops screaming. Because to be still is to declare that you do not need the noise to survive. You do not need the applause, the likes, the validation, the comparisons. You have something deeper. You have someone deeper. The 10 minutes of stillness have taught me that true power is not in the shout. It is in the whisper, and the whisper of Jesus, "You are my beloved child," roars louder than any lie the world can throw at you. I still have bad days. I still have moments when the old fear creeps in. But I have something I never had before. A practice, a rhythm, a way of returning to the truth when the lies get loud. And that practice is this: sit down, shut up, and let Jesus love you. It sounds too simple, but simplicity is not the same as ease. Sitting still for 10 minutes is one of the hardest things I have ever done. Harder than building a business, harder than running a marathon. Because it requires me to stop pretending, to stop performing, to just be with the one who already knows everything about me and loves me anyway. That is the quiet that roars, and it has changed everything. I am sitting on the same couch where it all began, the same couch where I first sat still for 10 minutes, terrified and empty, not knowing if anyone was listening. The cushions have worn thin, the fabric has faded, but the silence is the same, and the one who filled it has never left. This is the last part I will write, not because the story is over. The story is never over when Jesus is in it, but because I have said what I needed to say. The rest is for you to live. A year of stillness, a lifetime of worth. It has been 2 years now since that first 10-minute stillness. 2 years of sitting, forgetting, remembering, falling, getting back up. 2 years of learning that my worth is not a mountain to climb, but a gift to receive. 2 years of hearing the whisper, sometimes loud, sometimes faint, but always there. I still have bad days. Last month, I lost a different project. Not the one that broke me 2 years ago, but a new one. The old panic rose up like a ghost from a grave. My chest tightened. My thoughts raced. You're not good enough. You never were. This is proof. But this time, I did not wait until 3 a.m. to sit still. I did not spiral for a week before hitting the bathroom floor. I sat down right then, in my office, in the middle of the workday. I set a timer for 10 minutes. I closed the door, and I whispered, already worthy, already loved, already his. The fear did not vanish instantly, but it lost its grip. By the time the timer went off, I was not fixed, but I was not broken either. I was simply a man sitting in the presence of Jesus, remembering who he was, and that was enough to get through the rest of the day. What I want you to know, if you take nothing else from these 13 parts, take this. You are not your resume. You are not your bank account. You are not your failures or your successes. You are not the voice of your father, your mother, your ex-spouse, or the bully from 7th grade. You are not the shame you carry or the mask you wear. You are a beloved child of the living God. That is your worth. It is infinite, it is unchangeable, it is free. And the only way to truly know it, not just believe it, not just recite it, but know it, is to sit still long enough to let Jesus show you. Not 10 minutes of frantic prayer, begging for a sign. Not 10 minutes of trying to earn his love. Just 10 minutes of being with him, of letting the silence do its work, of opening your hands and your heart and saying, "Here I am, show me." He will. The final 10 minutes, I am going to set a timer now. 10 minutes. I invite you to do the same. Not because I am special, because the same Jesus who met me on this couch is waiting to meet you wherever you are. Put down your phone, close your eyes, take a breath. He is right here, and he has something to tell you. You are my beloved child. With you, I am well pleased, not because of what you have done, because of who you are, and who you are is mine. That is the stillness that never ends. That is the worth that cannot be taken from you. Now go, sit still, and let him love you.